Hope everybody's safe and is doing great at home. Thanks a lot to everyone for joining this session. Today we have Shali from Pritilipi, who is co-founder and director of product management at Pritilipi. So at Pritilipi, they have been solving some really interesting problems around the digital content space, and they have achieved some major milestones in the past few months. So we'll hear to Pritilipi on the secret sauce that she has been applying around. Um, Before that, a bit about the community. The Product Folks is a volunteer driven community, and we have been running for around an year. In fact, we celebrated our anniversary a few days back, and we want to make this anniversary month, as exciting as possible for everyone. And we have a good lineup of events where we'll have many industry experts, and we'll hear to them. You can follow the links, follow the social media handles that I've shared in the Zoom chat to stay updated with all the events that are coming up. So for this event, the format is such that Shali will share her experience, this presentation on solving the chicken and egg problem. As you can see, this cute caricature that's on screen. And post that, we'll have a Q&A round. You can post your questions in the Slido link that I have shared in the Zoom chat again. I'll pick that up with Shali. So Shali, I think I will not delay any further, and we'll take it up with you. So Shali is one of the very few women co-founders in the industry, and I personally am very proud of her. So Shali, we are just waiting to now listen to you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Rashmi. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Nice. Thank you, Rashmi and Suhas, for inviting me. Thank you, Rashmi, for the sweet introduction. Uh, yeah, guys, so let's don't delay it further. The problem we are discussing here, or we are here to have a knowledge sharing on how to solve chicken and egg problem for marketplaces. So before jumping in, let me just take you guys through what do we understand by chicken and egg problem for a marketplace. So not going into definition, and this is something I definitely did not want to start my presentation with, but here I am. So in simplistic language, chicken and egg problem starts happening whenever there are two or more parties involved in a platform or a marketplace, and when one's existence is impacting the other's value prop. And that's how this entire chicken and egg problem starts coming into the existence. Now it differs to the use cases, that for Ola and Uber, or for marketplaces like Airbnb, things are totally different, right? So basically it boils down to that, what is the use case I'm trying to solve, and based on that we figure out that what matters to the business use case the most. Is it the demand side, it is the supply side, how, or if the both, then how do I basically prioritize that what matters to me in my early stage, and then from there I basically figure out the product tactics around it, and we basically uh, come inside the game, and then from there the journey starts, that how do I make sure that this is the lowest hanging fruit to achieve this, right? So yeah, I just wanted to make you guys on the same page, that this is what we are discussing today in this session. uh, Again, sorry for starting with the lot of jargons and definitions, uh, but one thing I wanted to clarify is, a lot of times in lot of articles we see that people generally perceive this chicken and egg problem is a seeding issue. I don't think it's a seeding issue. As and when company grows, uh, be it in early phase, or as and when company matures, or as and when you reach critical mass, it happens at all the phases. It is a constant hustle. How do we make sure, and how do we understand what makes sense strategically for our business use case, and then prioritize accordingly, right? So yeah, by after saying all of this thing, let me just uh, take you guys through. So there are a lot of articles, there are a lot of knowledge. You just put chicken and egg problem in consumer tech, you will probably come across like all sort of articles, all sort of knowledge. I am here to talk to you guys about what Pratilipi's journey have been so far and how we have applied the learnings, and if there are any takeaways, or if probably we are able to help you in any ways. Right. So before starting, let me just, sorry for the stretched out image, but yeah, the business use case of Pratilipi is very simple. We are a storytelling platform for regional languages, Indian languages. So there are two sides, obviously. One where there are storytellers who are coming on the platform and then they are telling their stories in their first language. And then there are readers who are, or listeners who are consuming this content in their first language. When we say stories, we usually define the content length is not so short, but on an average around 1000 to 1500 words. So this is where Pratilipi comes into the picture. This is what Pratilipi does. Right now, the thesis when we started Pratilipi at that time, we had thought that this is how the growth loop is going to cover itself. So I'll just quickly explain this image, what I have put forward in the presentation is for us, how does both the sides are uh, propelling each other, and how does both the sides are actually fueling the entire use case for us, right? So simplifying the image for us, say a new writer who's coming on the product uh, is basically bringing their own network. Say I'm a writer, I'm coming to Pratilipi, I'll bring my own set of readers to the Pratilipi, then these readers will end up reading my content and they'll end up discovering other good content on the platform. And so there the cross discovery happens, and these people over a period of time they'll become engaged readers on the platform, and these engaged readers will evolve as aspiring writers, that okay, now is the time where I would also like to tell my stories to these people around here. And so they become the part of the community, and then they bring their own network, and so it's a loop, right, where every reader we see that someone who has finished reading around 18 19 stories on the platform, they start aspiring to participate either in the small contest where we are asking them to participate, right? So this is how the network hypothesis looks like in Pratilipi. I hope, am I audible? um,
Yes,
am
yes,
I?
audible,
Yeah,
yes.
awesome. So yeah, now so this that was the business use case for us. But now let me just take you guys through the journey of Pratilipi. That so at this point in time we are serving around 227 million reads a month. So the scale is huge. But when we started at that point, we did not have so many users. We were not sure that what's going to work out for us. Right. So the very first thing I would like to share is that when we started Pratilipi, we started off with 2 3 languages, 4 languages. And when we were reaching out to the writers for the first time, they were like, why would we share our content with you? We already have our content published in offline news or newspapers or magazines or WordPress or Blogspot, right? For us, Reader's Dilemma was not that huge because we were sure in the early POC what we had done, we were clear that people are genuinely interested in reading content, as there was a dearth of regional content online. So people were looking forward to read in their first language if we are serving them the fiction. So basically on our platform, when we say storytelling, we have a fiction first content. The demand side was not so much of an issue, but for us, still we needed to reach out to these guys, and we also wanted to make sure that people who are gonna join our platform as a writers, they also see a value in it, right? If we are going to bring any XYZ people on the platform, they might say that, ki, hey, I'm a very good writer, and why would I join your platform because you have like any Tom, Dick, and Harry writing on your platform. So this was a genuine issue back then, right? So at that point, how we had started was basically we started seeding the platform with public domain content, which is basically for say in Hindi we started off with Premchand, we in Bengali we started off with Rabindranath Tagore, and so. So this basically helped us having a good quality content to start off with in regional languages, and then when people started reading this content, so they were already aware of all of these writers in their first languages, but either a lot of these people were not having this content offline with them, probably not in formats of books, or definitely these contents were not available online. right? And so when these people started coming and reading on the platform, we also made sure that this first set of people whom we are onboarding, they are good, not so professional, but they are good to start with writers, that they have some social presence, they are sort of social celebrity out there, right? So, and that's how we started. Now, talking about the product, so you also have to make sure that to in such scenario, how do you prioritize that these are all the features I'm going to build when I'm bringing all of this set of people on my platform, right? So definitely first thing first for us was how do we give a basic reading experience which is really smooth, and how do we give them the best discovery, keeping in mind we are a user generated content platform. So for us it makes a lot more sense, not in the early days, but discovery is the major catch here. So yeah, so we started off with just recommendation version very first, where we just did came up with the manually curated contents. We came up with the list of contents, and that's how we had started, right? So yeah, so the early days were basically to figuring out what is the dilemma, how am I actually deriving value from one side, and how am I parting it to the other side, and how am I propelling my early growth, right? So after the first thing, the second thing was is basically people who have once finished reading one content on my platform. How am I making sure that these people are going to stick, or they are going to come back again, right? So for that we needed to figure out some very early feedback loop mechanism, where we are making sure that these people interact uh, with, say, in terms of review, in terms of giving reviews on the published contents, or probably either following the writers, right? So that next time uh, that the writer whom they have followed, if they publish a content, they receive a notification, they are coming back again. So that this initial feedback loop tactics were there, which were basically a very preliminary features of the product. And then when I say MVP writing experience is something we needed to have it, but to be honest, for early 60, 80 days, we did not have sound writing system on our platform. Even a lot of times, we just asked writers that, hey, why don't you give us your content and we would publish on your behalf. If you see that there is any value, then probably you can come back again and publish more stories on your own, right? So we were not focusing much on the writing experience, right? So this is how the early days of Pratilipi looked like. Uh, Now, the second phase started when we started seeing that, yeah, model is actually working out. We stopped going outbound. We see that the inbound is exceeding the outbound. A lot of writers now are reaching out to us directly, and both the supply as well as the demand side is started going uh, relatively better. Now it's the question that how do I make sure that whatever has worked in my early days, can I basically speed that up? And for that, can I do something which is going to give me compounding returns, right? So to start off with, I'll just give you a very few basic example that uh, so in 14 15, when Geo was not there, and when lot so there were hardly any consumer tech products were out there, right? This is even before ShareChat, right? So then at that time for us, it was very critical to figure out that 80 to 85% of our users were actually reading on the mobile. And if we just give them the smooth mobile writing experience, then it's actually going to give us a huge uh, uh, hit here on the writer side. So, and then we thought that, okay, fine, now is the time where, so basically we were the web first product, where we were not sure of the entire thesis, and so to start off with we had started out with web. Ongoing going onwards, we figured out, okay, fine, is the time where we also think about the app, and later on we see the highest engagement ever uh, on app, right? So so yeah, that's when we decided to have a having giving out an experience of good writing via mobile. So that's how we prioritized at that time. Now, I would also like to focus on something where uh, once you have started saying, okay, fine, daily there are around 1,000 to 1,000 contents are getting published. There are few lakhs of readers who are coming and consuming this content. Now is the question, how do I decide? How do I make both of these parties even more uh, strongly connected? And that's where you basically figure out the product hooks, right? So I'll just give you an example. I think I have covered this example multiple times earlier as well in my earlier talks, but this is something has really worked out well, and that's why I keep quoting this. So as you guys know that Pratilipi is a storytelling platform, right? So for us, when we saw that someone who's writing a episodic story, right, who has started writing a story one, he received genuine feedback from readers, ratings on his content. He ended up publishing second content, again got the feedback, third content, again got the feedback, and so this sort of pattern started emerging out on the platform. We saw a lot of episodic stories randomly published by a lot of writers, and that's where you realize that okay, now you should be channelizing this thing so that you actually give them more meaningful, basically whatever is emerging out on my product, am I able to bring them together and give them a better experience? And that's where we brought the series, where we give them this. So we did nothing, we basically just saw that yeah, this is what is happening, and how do we best serve to both the parties who are engaged in this, right? And what we did is basically gave good experience to write a series and good experience to write a read a series. So to both the parties, reader and writer. And so that is how series came into the existence. So at this point, around 60-65% of our writers are also writing series. Series is basically an episodic series where the episodes are interconnected. And so this is how you figure out the stronger loop. So we have clearly seen someone who's coming on the app, day 2, day 3 users, and if they ended up reading the series, the probability of them coming back on day 20 is like really high. So such behavioral cohorts started becoming stronger, right? So so yeah, that's the second point I wanted to discuss, that how do you prioritize once you have achieved certain scale, and how do you make sure even at that time there are chances of things falling apart, right? So how do you make sure that the things are still uh, um, uh, in the uh, uh, in the right meaningful manner mein, how do you engage both the parties? Yeah. So, and the third thing is I have written here that automating things which have worked out to speed up. So I'll give you a small example. So when we started off the early days, right? So at that time, for it was a complete hustle for us to onboard our initial 200 writers in each language, right? You reach out to them, you do a lot of outbound, you basically attend a lot of literary festivals, and you like literally cold call. Any person whom you know is remotely associated with writing, right? And then basically you just convince them, you make them realize that this is the value. But at that time we did some small experiments around key, let's try launching events, let's try how people are reacting to that. And it actually gained us a good traction those days when we were seeing that monthly growth of authors were around 100-150 per language, not even less than that, right? So yeah, so then once we got certain stability, once we released our app, once we saw that okay, now the writing experience is also smoother out, then the next thing which we thought of automating was basically, because even at this point in time, the network effect was clearly not visible on the supply side, as in writers were coming but not at the pace they should be. So we were still dependent on events, we were still dependent on mechanism which were bringing us growth regularly on supply side. And that's where we tried automating these events, uh, where from product point of view. So earlier everything was manual, where people would launch an event and entries would be gathered, then these entries would be published on individual's account, and then it would go live. People would vote to these entries who have come went live in the contest, and then we would declare results, and there were some probably monetary rewards of 500 or 1,000 bucks. Yeah, so we automated that thing, and that actually helped us a lot, not just from the growth point of view, but from the You also try to remove the dependency of people who are involved in the um, different stakeholders to the product, right? So there are the language team we have who handles this event, and we try to remove dependency of a lot of, we try to remove basically their uh, uh, time. We try to save their time. Yeah. So yeah, digressing. Yeah, and then when you start saying that, okay, fine, now is the time where I see a lot of writers. So we have nothing done. We have basically trying to stabilize the product. We haven't launched anything new. We haven't seen something which is really working out well. But still, this network effects have started rolling in, and there you clearly decide, okay, fine, it's the time where things are on its own, right? So that is the phase uh, where we need to prioritize that everything has started scaling up really fast. Both the sides, readers have started growing out of like really well, and then writers, also new writers, especially who have never ever written any content in their lifetime, have started writing on the Pratilipy for the first time, and you are catering to their needs, right? Uh, so now is the time where you again prioritize that what matters to us the most. How do I make sure, because the first time writers, the quality of the content might go down on scale, right? Or how do I make sure that people who are reading, because this side is also equally growing at the same pace, how do I make sure that these people are coming across the best content and they're going to come back again? Also, I don't want to demotivate my people who are coming on the platform for the first time and I'm not giving them any readers, right? So that's where then basically you prioritize. Now is the time where I revamp my recommendation. How do I bring the best personalization feed for my users, and how do I cater to their interest in the best manner? uh, so I'll just give you another small example where so personalization in feed is very common. So like where I, like any other consumer tech or the content platforms, we also basically worked in our recommendation, and itself is a huge thing to discuss. Uh, but I would like to focus on the first thing, that where you see that people have started growing at scale, you would also like to build engagement modes where you try to create higher switching cost for these people who are coming on a platform, right? So for example, in our case, as I give you the example earlier, that series was a feature which was the pattern already emerging out, and we try to capture it to serve it at its best. Now is the time for us to figure out how do we, so because the behavior was established that, okay, fine, this is basically giving us a good return. So basically series actually helped us increase our reads per DAO, right? So now is the time that how do I double down on this so that I make sure that people who are engaged with it, I'm increasing the switching cost even further. And that's where we thought of launching a feature called live serials. Live serials is nothing but the way TV programs work, right? There where I'm taking commitment from writers that, hey, on daily basis or in weekly, in a week, I'm going to publish on so and so days, and I'm making this commitments public to my readers, and readers know that, okay, if I'm following this series, this writer is going to publish next episode on so and so date. So I'm ensuring basically, okay, fine, the frequency is definitely going to go up. So yeah, so and once the experience is smooth for the live serial, we see that the overall engagement on the platform or the frequency is definitely going to go up, right? So yeah, so just a small example I'm quoting here for live serial. Another example was that how do you, once things have scaled, once a lot of people are there in the system, you also the increased switching cost wale mudde pe, the one more example is how do you make sure that these people are closely connected. That's where we had basically experimented around coming out with collections. We also tried experimenting around P2P. So at this point, till this point, we only had that reader can only get in touch with writer via either they can write a review on their content, and that is it basically. Then we build a functionality of P2P message where, say, if you are following a writer, you can also basically message to that writer, and that So the for thesis around this features were not necessarily I'm trying to double down on the frequency. It's basically to facilitate the engagement in a more meaningful manner so that my core use case keeps growing, right? So so yeah, and the third thing here, which is very, very, very important, and I think one of the questions which I have received, Rashmi had shared with me, is also around this thing, is basically you also would not like to lose the trust, because as and when you grow, your team size remains same, but the scale has grown, and so there are a lot of issues happening in your product, and you would definitely not like to take a hit on trust on either of from either of the parties, either readers or writer sides. So how do you make sure that the contents are not getting stolen and people are not doing copy theft on your platform, or how do you serve your best, because the user generated content, how do you make sure that the porn contents are not coming, right? So this is when you take care of the moderation. How do you subtly handle this moderation, and how do you basically take care of the anomalies like this to have the strong trust from both the parties? uh, yeah, so that's how I see Pratilipi's journey, uh, from like very early days. Then when we decided, okay, fine, this is something is we are it's going to work out, and we are going to double down on the thesis. And then when we started seeing the network effects coming in, right? So yeah, I think that is all from my side. Just one thing, because this all sounds, in retrospect, this all sounds like, these are all very planned. This is how we had decided to start Pratilipi, and this is how we had decided to. Our roadmap looks very clear from very start of the beginning. It is definitely not that. So a lot of things what I have covered in the examples in the above presentation is basically, part of the experiments. We were not sure that it's going to work out, it's not going to work out. Like out of 500 things, probably two things in a year have basically is working out really well for us. And then basically you double down on that, and it's also, strategically aligned with your long-term vision. So meanwhile, when we are working on something which is going to give us huge compounding returns, we also keep uh, up the pace with a lot of experiments, and without being biased anywhere, that okay, fine, this can bridge the gap, meanwhile I'm trying to achieve this, right? So yeah, that is literally the nutshell of the session, that um, keep experimenting, keep having the open mind, and uh, yeah, that is it, I think, from my side. uh, Happy to have any questions. I think I
Yes.
covered it in 30 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Shelly. That was pretty extensive session, and we have so many questions lined up for you. Before that, yes, I mean it really answered a lot of questions regarding content generation. And I just recalled a few days ago I wanted to read Nirmala from Premchand, and I was searching everywhere. The only place where I could find it in a respectable UI and UX was on Pratilipi that time. So that was one content that drove me to again start reading those Hindi books. So yeah, multiple questions that I have for you, Shali. There's one question: how is Pratilipi planning to monetize the platform? This is one big question that everybody has in their mind.
Mm.
Would you take this up?
Sure. So we definitely don't know at this point in time that what's going to work out, but we have couple of theses which could be our potential revenue channels. One of them being the user-generated revenue, which is basically the royalty sharing with our creators. That some of the books, basically like 2% of our books, might be paid, and the revenue generated out of it would be distributed to the creators of this content. So that is one thing. The host has asked you to start your video. Oh,
Yeah.
am I visible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Yeah, cool. So so yeah, that is so yeah, that is one potential channel we are counting on. Another one is IP and monetization. So since on Pratilipi, you see a lot of content are really um, great content. They are like quality first content, the type of content you might even consume in video format in this Hotstar and Netflix, right? So a lot of our contents are already on its way to get converted into uh, videos. Yeah, so that is something which is IP and monetization. We would be licensing out the content which is published on our platform. Third thing could be, ad revenues. We are not sure. So see, there could be multiple channels. We are not sure at this point in time that what might work out for best for us.
Okay, interesting. What you said related to that, there is another question. There are content platform types like videos, audio, stories. What are the key factors does Pratilipi focuses on to find their niche users and retain them? Yeah, how are you finding that this is what interests users and to keep retaining that interest?
Correct. So, in case of Pratilipi, from very start, we were very clear that we do not want to go into, even if it interests users, it wasn't aligned with our thesis. Is something where we did not want to divulge in short form content. We were very clear with that. Because that was one of the business strategy and business mode for us, that we would like to have a defensible content on our platform, and that's where we and reading and writing is the easiest form of content consumption and creation, and that's why we started off with it. We have recently launched audio as well, where basically we have yeah just okay, that's where basically yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, interesting. Since there are so many vernacular content platforms in India, so there's one question. The user wants to ask that is there any shift in this consumer behavior post COVID? As in, has it increased? Is the engagement increased? Or any
Yeah.
insights? Any insight into that?
So, to be honest, I would not directly associate it with COVID-19, because we had started seeing the growth spurts from December 2019. January, it actually started hitting a lot. So yeah, the engagement numbers, even the growth has doubled, or not exactly doubled, but it has been around 40%, 45% since the start of COVID. So that's there, but I would not necessarily say that this is a effect of COVID, because it has started happening much earlier. So uh, so yeah.
And there has been a lot, buzz around building for Bharat, building for India 2, India 3. So what is the main focus of Pratilipi? Is it focusing on India 2 or India 3, or it is on the product first and then deciding who should be the audience?
No, definitely not. We are very clear with that people. So that was our vision, basically, that people who does not have, without any dependence on the type of device they are having or the type of internet they are on, uh, we will make sure that these people are having enough content to read, or they have the mean to create this content and reach out to the world. So that has been the vision of the company, and so product literally doesn't matter. The idea is to stick to the vision of the company, that we would like to empower either it's tier B, tier 3, or in small villages, or beyond that. So that has been the idea from very start of the company.
Interesting. So what's next for Pratilipi, and would you consider your biggest competitors? The weighted question.
Also, to be honest, we don't have any direct competitors. At least yeah, we don't have any direct competitors. That's what we think. Uh, but yeah, what is next for Pratilipi is definitely something where, so for us, the competition, let me first finish the competition question, that we see that anyone who's spending time on internet, they are consuming any content anywhere, are basically competition to us, where they could come on, because we see that people who are coming on our platform and reading are not readers. We are basically seeing the market itself is expanding. These people who are getting into the habit of reading, right? So our segment is not necessarily limited to people out there who's just into reading and writing. We are basically creating a habit of reading and writing online. So that's where I see that anyone who's consuming content online, or anyone who's even playing some mobile game, would be the customer for us, right? So hope I answered the competition question. What is next for Pratilipi is we are basically seeing this year is where we, as I mentioned earlier, that now the scale has hit. So how do we serve the best experience to both the parties? And still, it's not like the scale has hit. It's basically we are doubling down on that. And how do we make sure that within next year, so at this point, we have around 12, 13 million monthly active users, and how do we make sure that within a year we reach to 40 million monthly active user, and that's what we have in mind. But apart from this, not just the growth, we are also trying to make sure that how people who are engaged in the ecosystem, how they are sticking to the ecosystem, and how do we make them help their achieve their um, mm, the best experience on the product. So yeah, apart from that, the core product, we are also, I think a lot of you guys are already aware that we are having audio app, we are having comics app, and it's comics is really working out well. So comics is something we have started off just in Hindi at this point. We have lot of around, we have 200 to 50 comics is on our platform. Where at this point it's purely platform generated content, but the idea is same that over a period of time, we would be going into PUGC. So that's the idea, and it's working out well. We are already seeing that people who are engaged with comics reading, they are spending around 11 to 15 minutes in their session. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, so regarding the content moderation, you also shared it in your this presentation as well about how Pratilipi is maintaining the quality of the content. Could you tell us a few key steps or which other content platforms can also adopt from to maintain this quality as well as the all the reduce all the abuse, everything, how to maintain the quality? Yeah.
Correct. So I'll just tell you what the approach Pratilipi had um, opted in. So from very start, we had the report system in place. So we say that we do not curate the content. We just moderate the content. Moderate the content as in we have given the tools and functionalities inside the system wherever users who come across such content which are explicit or offensive in nature, they just report it back. And then we have internal mechanism where we take this content off, and we have our internal system where we reach out to the creators, we give them the warning, and if the behavior persists, then we even block them from the platform. So that's how the early, so this is there since the very beginning, where we have the report system in place. People can report reviews, they can report content, they can even report the replies. So all of these things were uh, under moderation. Now, this is where the engagement happens. But what about the feed which is populating in the recommendation? How do we make sure that the quality content is basically going out to users? And that's where it's basically how do you manage the discovery, right? So probably a lot of degraded quality content started creating on your platform as and when a lot of new writers are joining the platform. But it's basically boils down on product, that how do we manage the discovery, and we are not uh, uh, we are serving the best content to the user depending on their journey. So if say someone who's coming on day zero, how do I make sure that these users are coming across the best content? If someone who's coming on day seven, then whatever data points I have, how do I serve to the best to the interest of this user, right? So that's how we basically moderate the discovery, and the early moderation is that. But then apart from that, we also have figured out something which later on started happening a lot lately. Uh, I think in 2018 we had come across a solution for this, where there were a lot of copy theft cases started emerging out, where people started copying content from outside, and then so there were three things here, that people are copying content from outside, people keeping content from within the product, and people keeping taking the content from the product and taking it outside. So we had addressed this issue in parts, and what is directly in our control is basically how do we make sure that the ecosystem itself is hygienic, is people are not copying from within the product and not populating it across the product. So for that, we had basically come up with a DS. Guys had helped us come up with the algo where we figure out that this is the similarity percentage, and we basically have a algo which figures out that this is a similarity percentage match, and then you basically take the appropriate action, and then you hand it over the same to the language team. So that's how we control the copy theft cases. It's not like 100% under the control, but yes, a lot of damage control we could do because of this mechanism. And another thing which we did is again very similar of the porn content detection, where either image or the content, if we see that there is some similarity of some word matching, that's where also we had figured out some algos and which detect and which flag the content itself, and then language team takes the respective action. Right. So that's how the content moderation on different fronts we take care of. I think electricity went off.
Okay. Um, uh,
Yeah, yeah, please go ahead.
Yes. So, Shali, just digressing from whatever we have discussed about Pratilipik and the product, there's one question from one of the founders. So he's saying, "Heard the company culture is pretty awesome. Tips for the rest of us founders. What do you have to say about it?"
To be honest, everything we have learned is from the CEO or the founder of the company is Ranjit, and his values of culture, and he has basically taught us that how the culture should be. So to be honest, people who are coming in who are working with Pratilipy, we give them the full freedom of experimenting the way they would like to, what is interest them the best to pick up that this is what they would like to work on, not just restricting them that, okay, fine. So even if when we come up with the job positions, we are very clear that this is the area where they would work, say the core product or the comics or the audio. But once the person has joined the team, we allow them to explore that what is the best thing they would like to, what interests them the most, and where they would like to optimize on, right? And that's from there the freedom starts rolling in, right? So for us, the culture is pretty simple. If I have to define in three terms, it's basically transparency, is a trust uh, across the stakeholders to the company, and the third thing is basically hustle, right? That how do you make sure that all of us are aligned, are just trying to achieve just one thing, and at the same time we are just being transparent to each other.
Yes,
But
interesting.
I think I am not the right person to talk about culture. To be honest, you should definitely have uh, one such session with Ranjit, and there is a lot to learn. At this point in time, down the line, 5 6 years working uh, with with the same company, we still keep learning from him on different aspects. Like it still feels like it's day zero for us, and we yet to go ahead a lot from here.
Yes, sure, Shali. I'll be connecting with him next for sure. Okay. So there's one question. How do you convince investors to a platform that has traction and pretty strong traction, but no revenue yet?
Again, that's not my job. That is the work what Ranjit does. But yeah, probably he is the right person to answer this question. But I think that when you are in growth trajectory, and when people who understand the consumer tech, they understand the space. And I haven't seen so much of the dilemma that from investors saying that they are pushing us, or they are even nudging us that this is the time where you should be doubling down on this, because they trust your efforts. The way we have a culture of freedom inside the company, they also appreciate that they trust the vision of the founders, and they allow us to experiment a lot. And uh, and so yeah, there hasn't been so far, luckily for us, that till the time, so our goals are very clear that once we have reached 40 million monthly active user base, we would be starting monetizing probably very soon, probably by end of this year, in definitely in comics and in core product, we would be starting monetizing. We would start experimenting around. We'll see that how does it scale. But we have been lucky so far that we have never seen that push. In bits and pieces, people have reached out to us asking about that, how do we perceive it further. And Ranjit has been able to has very strong vision and has very clear strategic goals in his mind, and that's why it's pretty easy deal for us. So we haven't seen that dilemma.
Interesting. So regarding the product and the retention, that's pretty high. So was there any referral policy that you were following in the initial days, or are you following now for readers or for the writers for that matter?
Referral policies, as in I didn't understand. Referral policies as a referral mechanism in
Any
product?
referral programs for getting
Yeah.
more writers or readers on the platform?
Yeah, so we have a basic referral mechanism. That's where if you like a content or if you have published a content, you share that content, and the shared content would bring the additional audience from outside, and that's what the organic growth uh, works on its own. Apart from that, we had have some mechanism where people can invite their friends. It's a very subtle passive feature, and which we have recently killed because there were some bugs in it. We are hoping to restart it soon, but not at this point in time. But apart from this, we haven't had any external referral mechanism where we are having any reward system in place for people who are launching the app or no such things on the platform. So it's basically so for us it has been clear that if someone who has finished reading a content in on their 0th day or someone who has realized the value prop of the product, chances of them going ahead with the product is pretty high. We are still hustling on that. We are still making sure that it's literally our the quarter ka priority, that how do we make sure that the D30 by D1 still remains the same. But we have been doing well there.
Okay, so the other platforms that coexist right now, Medium and Quora. So any inspiration that you took during the early days, or anything that that is correlated to them? Would you?
So the business model is pretty similar to Medium. Not
Yes.
exactly to Medium, but a lot similar to Wattpad, if you have heard of. Uh, just that the basic business model remains same with Medium and Wattpad. Not so much with Quora, because as Quora is a question answer forum. But yeah, uh, what inspirations we have taken? A lot of design inspirations for sure. But yeah, isn't it? So it's part of the, it's not specifically that one thing which has worked out well for us that we had seen working out well with Medium. It's basically, you just keep exploring multiple apps, multiple content platforms in parallel and see if something fits for your use case and basically experimenting around it. So, so yeah. So we have seen one thing, the collection thing was inspired from YouTube, is when people create their playlist, where say even people who are not active creators on the platform, but we are giving them some means of creating their, associating themselves with that this is what they have passively created on the platform, and they being the distribution mode towards the other side, that okay fine, playlist is also something I can subscribe to, and not necessarily channel creators or video creators, right? So something that inspired us, and we also have collections on our platform where even readers can collect and create the collection of their favorite books. So what the thesis was with collection was basically pretty simple, that we were exploring that if we can establish reader to reader engagement. So at this point in time, everything is towards uh, spanning the both the side of the platform, that a reader is tightly associated with writers in all transactional means. Uh, we wanted to try out if I am able to create a community out of it, that okay, I and you share similar interest on reading Premchand, so can we also have, I can subscribe to your collection whenever next time you are adding any books or any of your favorite stories in your collection, I'll get the notification and I'll be reading the same. So yeah.
Cool. So I think I have covered pretty much all the questions. I'll just take up one last question. It's from Madhulika. So she says, what are some combinations of the localization pipeline that you have followed? Did you think about automating it using Google APIs for vernacular languages?
What do you mean by localization pipelines?
I think for the tier two and tier three cities, how are you using the vernacular languages to?
Correct. So there is no playbook for us, to be honest. We have the language team in place, and these people, we have in-house team for the same. We are not using any Google APIs to translate all of these things. We have individual language spoke language experts who are doing these translations for us, uh, and that way we are basically facilitating localization. Let me know if I understand the context better. I am not getting the question.
Sure. I have pinged Madhumita if
Yeah.
she can elaborate on that. So yeah,
So
let's
if
wait.
she is talking about front end where I-18 and the localization thing, I'm not sure whether she's talking about the languages or she's talking about the tech.
Sure. So yeah, let's. Cool. I think till the time she comes back, I'll take up one another question, which is how do you enrich the user generated data, and how do you know what genre category the content is? User generated data.
Sure. So that's a pretty simple product mechanism where someone who's creating a content, we have system categories whenever they are publishing. It's in their journey of publishing. They come across, and it's a mandatory step that they had to decide for the genre they are writing in, and that's how we store the genres in the system. And then it boils down to how do I get it best. So say if you like Premchand, then someone who has also liked Premchand, what other genres they are reading, and that's how we improvise on the personalization on that aspect.
Got it, got it, got it. There's one more question. I'll just take this up. Questions are keep coming and coming. I'll try to take this, take as much as possible. So, as you have introduced P2P messages, profiles, do you see yourself moving towards a social media model? And thus, do you see Facebook exploring into your territory soon?
No, 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 no. We are very clear that P2P is something to, as I mentioned in my presentation as well, that P2P is something where we are trying to build a higher engagement, and definitely this is not something we are optimizing for the growth. Um, for retention, it might matter, but this is basically how do I enrich the experience of both the parties who is associated closely on my platform, right? So, someone who's reading a lot about your content, how do I give him a chance to interact with you, and so that the delight factor goes up and that person feels enriched and they come back again. So that is what we are seeing. We are not moderating P2P per se at this point in time, but we haven't seen even that much of usage as it is not directly connected to any of the incentives for both the parties. So
Yes. Shelly, Madhulika has got back. So she
yeah.
says, just wanted to understand if you will typically employ in-house language experts or use translation agencies, especially when you're moderating copies.
Correct. Correct. So yeah, so it's a we definitely have in-house team from very start. It's a very small team. Shankar who and Jitesh are the people who are leading the language team. Um, this language team has basically language experts per language. They understand the language well. They are basically the language major. Not just they have the efficiency over language, but they also understand the fiction well. Now, coming back to the second part of the question, where how do we make sure that so at scale the moderation works out well for so many new contents getting created and so many reports coming in the system. So that's where we have basically figured out the machine learning algos to figure out that what is the similarity match and can we do the net damage control in advance even before people reporting that those contents in, right? So a mix of both approach where we also taking help of tech and we are also having in-house language team has so far helped us. But if the need be, say, if now the scale since it is really going high, we might even consider to give out this moderation completely to a outsource to an agency or something. But not at this point in time. We are doing everything in-house.
Got it, got it, got it. And how much? So there's one more question. That is Pratilipi looking forward, and this is, I promise, the last question. Is Pratilipi looking forward to collaborating with businesses and become an aggregator of content writers?
Oh no, that's that's something I am not aware of. It can come up, I don't know, but at this point, no. So we have been very clear from very start that you wouldn't kill the value for your current stakeholders in the system when you try to pivot in the same ecosystem, right? That's not how it works. So if I now start becoming the aggregator and I start onboarding publishers, that means I'm taking away the values I have been asking that my writers would get. That's basically I'm killing it. So that is not something we have in mind. If I'm understanding it correctly, what the question reciprocates to is basically how do we have plans of onboarding publishers or aggregators of the contents? So at this point in time, no, not for Pratilipi's main app where people are creating content. And that's what basically we have been telling people, that now if you have to tell a story, you don't have to go and take approval of people out there or have to wait for the media houses or the publishing houses to reach back to you. You just come here, you prove your presence, that okay fine, you have written a story, Pratilipi is there to reach out, to make your story, to reach out to audience. You take your validation out and then go and then let publishers come to you. Hey, you are so popular on Pratilipi and let us publish your content.
Nice, nice, interesting. I think we are just on time, and it was really interesting learning about all the insights of Pratilipi. And we wish you a lot more growth and achieve many more milestones in the coming months.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
yes, thanks a lot, Shally, for having us. Um, thanks to all the participants as well. I have shared the event link for the next few events that we have in the lineup, and you can always go and register to them. I have also shared the social media handles for the product folks. You can follow them to get updated. And yes, it was a pretty hell of a session.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, I would just like to communicate one more thing. We are looking for a data analyst role. I am not sure is this the right platform to reach out to people, but since there are relevant audience here, and we are seeing the role evolving further in product. So if someone who's interested in applying, please do. Thank you.
Yeah, so I hope we can spread this word and get someone really great at Pratilipi.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Lata.
so much.